out, and away we go.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. And we got the boys here. We got Tomas and we got Eddie. Unfortunately, our buddy Walker is not with us today. He is celebrating his 40th birthday. That's live. That's real. Sorry, Walker. It's out there, man. That's it. You're 40. You're turning into an old man now. But yeah, we just want to say a big happy birthday to him, and hope you guys have a great night tonight and enjoy some dinner. But back to some Formula One, back to the podcast. Let's get right into this. Thomas, Charles Leclerc, Monaco. What are we doing? Let's go.
Holy, I think this was the race that we were all hoping to see, and we finally saw it after so many bad luck and failed attempts and all this BS that happened to him. Finally, a flippin' win, a very well-deserved flippin' win. Overall, the race, in my perspective, first lap was fire. The way Charles led the whole race was very, very well done. He definitely put his A game out there. He had it under control. He had pace. He had strategy. Everything was like textbook. You know, his skill was on point, and I think it was just a combination of multiple things coming together and basically giving him that little push to victory. So I am so happy he won the race. I am hoping to see him on the podium, on number one podium, many, many more times, especially in Monaco. And I believe, as Ed said, he was the first Monegas driver in 93 years to win that race. So, you know, that's awesome. I loved it. Ed?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's been 93 years since the last Monegas winner, namely Luis Chiron. But I want to take it a little bit more on an emotional standpoint on this one, because I know that he dedicated this race to his father, who passed away a few years ago, and also to Jules Bianchi, because during the start of Leclerc's Formula One season, and his stint in Formula One, when he started, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in Sauber, they were about to give up on him, and Jules Bianchi said to Ferrari, "Give this kid a chance because he is a fantastic driver," and he's shown it for how many years? Last year, he was pushing the car, crashed the car in qualifying, destroyed the car, the transmission, and a few years before that, still pushing, still wanting to try to get that win. And it was such a historic win. You know what? Specifically for this season, I'm seeing a trend of lots of wins that are just we're so tired of Max Verstappen winning, and then on top of that, there's a little bit more extra to the wins, specifically for Ferrari, for Leclerc, for Sainz even. But yeah, Monaco, even if we all know that it's a procession race, the race ends within the qualifying, it was still a fantastic race. I loved it. Can't wait for the next one, and we'll see what happens. Drew?
Yeah, I'm super pumped for Ferrari. Considering the walkaway that we thought Rebel was going to have this year, Carlos Sainz pulling out a couple of wins early. He was the only one to beat Max Verstappen last year, and now we have Charles Leclerc on the top step in his home race. This seems like a momentous comeback that Freddie Vasseur has been kind of planning slowly, and getting the right people in the right places and giving the drivers the tools that they need. And I just think Ferrari is absolutely killing it right now, and I think in a big way that Freddie Vasseur is building a super team. That's happening. He picked up Lewis Hamilton, and he's getting a couple of these technical directors, and he's stealing the best people from all the places. And after watching the race, I kind of noticed that Freddie Vasseur is connected. He's a plug. That guy knows everybody on the grid, and everybody respects him in a big way, which I think is awesome, right? And so I think he's just doing something that Ferrari needed for a long time. And on that note, I want to take a quick second, because this episode is brought to you by the Scuderia Ferrari Club of Toronto. And so they are having their 11th anniversary dinner dance on Saturday, June 15th at the Royal Venetian Mansion in Aurora. The reception starts at 5:30 p.m. and it's followed by a dinner at 7:30 p.m. You're allowed to bring your Ferrari and put it on display, which is awesome. Tickets are $150 for adults, $75 for kids under 14. That includes dinner, dancing, and an open bar. They're welcoming you to become a part of the passionate Ferrari community. It's got exclusive access to events, races, and more. And you can connect with fellow fans and support the legendary Ferrari team. Follow Scuderia Ferrari Club _Toronto on Instagram, or you can visit the club at 551 Javelin Drive in Woodbridge, Ontario, every Wednesday from 6 to 9:30 p.m. or during race events to sign up. So now that we're talking about how much Ferrari is killing it, let's chat about Red Bull. Is Red Bull starting to slack, or is McLaren and Ferrari starting to climb back up the ranks? Which one do you think it is, Thomas?
I think it's a perfect storm. I don't think there's one specific thing that's affecting Red Bull. I think there's multiples. Starting from all the stuff that happened with Helmut Marko, Max Verstappen, Christian Horner, all this stuff that they had internally. Also their director leaving, Adrian Newey. But I also think that a lot of teams, like, Drew, you said, they're tired of seeing Red Bull win and Max Verstappen almost constantly podium after podium, first place. And I think a lot of them are starting to bring out their big guns and think outside the box. What can we do differently in order to beat them or gain an advantage, or maybe different strategies? So I don't think it's a one cause thing. I think it's multiple causes that are kind of building up on top of Red Bull, and it's affecting them in that way. Also, in my personal opinion, I don't think it helps that Max Verstappen, being such a great driver that he is, I think he's getting a little bit bored too. Like, I'm not saying he's not trying; he's still trying, but it's just the kind of the fire. I don't really see the same Max Verstappen as I saw him last year, hungry for the win. Maybe it's just these few off races that he had, but it's just doesn't seem like the same energy he's bringing to the table.
I'm going to use this as a quick segue to get into a brand new segment that we have here on Formula One True North. And I think it's perfect for this because I know what you want to talk about already. This is called Ed's Tech Talk. Not TED Talk, close, but Ed's Tech Talk. All right, Ed, this one's you, man.
Thank you very much. And Tomas, I'll continue your thought. Just like the way Red Bull is reacting right now is, I don't know, I think they bit off way too much that they can chew, to the extent of they're now looking at the next set of rules, the 2026 rules, or the new regulations for the next car, next iteration. And they thought, like, you know what? The RB19 was fantastic. We destroyed the entire field. We'll do a little bit of the RB20, and then that's it. We'll leave it at that, because they saw the big difference of like around 25, 30, even 30 seconds of a gap between, Max's RB19 to the rest of the field. But now, with the rest of the field catching up, and on top of that, specific to Monaco, is that Red Bull, time immemorial, has always had issues with tracks that had high curbs and uneven surfaces. Remember last year with what happened? The first win, that was not the Red Bull. That was Carlos Sainz in Singapore. What was the issue? The exact same thing. And I know we touched on this last year, and the same problem reared its ugly head for Monaco, which is they lowered ride height. That's what Red Bull is always known for. The moment they raise the ride height and keep the stiffness, back steps out. It's always on a knife edge, and it's just like it pretty much destroys the entire balance of the car. I mean, even with what Verstappen said, like he was okay in the mid to high speed corners, but the moment they go into the low speeds, the car's handling was just like absolutely garbage. And on top of that, I think he was running hards first and then went into mediums to see if that would help. Didn't work. So at this point, it's still within the actual course in itself, and not to the extent of Red Bull being, the declining in their performance in terms of the vehicle, but the rest of the field is catching up. So we'll see what happens within the next few races. Canada is a very, very fast track, but they still have low speed corners, especially the last corner before the back straight into the chicane and into the actual starting stretch again. So we'll see what happens and see how Red Bull responds on that end. But so far, yeah, Ferrari's catching up. McLaren gave them the business in Miami. I mean, who knows? Even Mercedes might actually catch up too. We'll see what happens within the next few races.
And that's it for Ed's Tech Talk. All right. All right. Moving on, guys. I wanted to talk about, obviously, like, the start of the Monaco Grand Prix was epic. And it was epic for all the wrong reasons. And, KMag and Checo collided not even halfway through the first lap. And it was an absolute disaster. Checo's car looked like a crushed Red Bull can. It was an absolute mess. And when you watch the onboards and when you watch the different views of that tape, you can very clearly see that KMag was coming up the outside and Checo kind of squeezed him a little bit. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, who do you think was really at fault there? Thomas?
I'm going to say KMag. I'm going to say
would you care to elaborate?
Yeah. So I don't know. Yes, Checo was ahead. KMag did come through the right, and in my opinion, Checo didn't really squeeze him. If anything, it was a racing incident in my eyes. What happened was just two guys racing at Monaco, hard to overtake. Every point counts, every position counts, and unfortunately, it is what it is that it happened. It's unfortunate that it happened. Checo had a pretty decent chance in fighting in the race, and it's just an early retirement for three cars. So it's very unfortunate.
So you're going to side with the FIA officials and stewards on this one and say it was a racing incident, not handing out any penalties to KMag, which would then land him in the penalty box.
Correct.
You wanted to do that.
Oh,
hell
yeah. Hell yeah. I did. How about you, Ed? KMag or Checo? Who do you think was at fault? Or are you pleading the fifth on this one and going racing incident?
No, I am definitely going to go KMag on this one. Because if you kept on watching the replays, Checo had no place to go. He was in the middle and he had both Haas's on both ends. Being that KMag on the right was a little bit ahead of Hulk, but still, like, what do you expect? You're going uphill, you're trying to also do some defense. You're gonna almost always going to hit each other, especially if your front tire, I'm talking about KMag, and Checo's rear tire is like inches close to each other, going at high speed on that part of the track, even if it's almost like close to the widest part of the track, it's normally just one car going up. That's it. So for me, I was expecting after the incident, I was expecting the points. I was expecting Ollie Bierman to take the seat, and that's it for KMag for Canada. But lucky him, nothing happened. Also lucky for Checo a little bit because he was a little bit, lackluster in his performance. So him kind of like crashing out doesn't highlight his lackluster performance for the weekend. So good for them, but for me, short answer, KMag should have been penalized for that. Gives a chance to Ollie Bierman to get the seat, and yeah, it's his fault 100%.
If
all right,
anything,
well, I'm going to take the.
Sorry, Drew. If anything, I think Haas took out the wrong Red Bull. They should have been Max Verstappen. That would have been a little bit more of an interesting race.
I'm seeing a trend, guys. I'm seeing a trend. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, like I don't know about this one. So they're going up the hill. Checo was in the middle. Nico was on his left side. KMag was on his right side. What happens is like you're going up that hill and you have to take a left-hand turn. So like you have to prepare and kind of slide out. And at that same time, that road actually gets more narrow on the right-hand side. So like KMag just he ran into a wall. Like they ran out of room. And like I want to start right here and just say I'm glad everyone's okay, because that crash was gnarly. Like the fact that a dude just got out of that car and Checo walked away, it blows my mind, you know, and thank God none of the photographers, reporters, camera guys, no one else got hurt, which was awesome. We love that. No one wants to get hurt in Formula One. But I think that, you know, I think they're both kind of at fault, and that makes it a racing incident, right? Like I think Checo needed to know that like that wall was running out and needed to give him a little bit more room. And he had more room on Nico's side. But I also think that KMag should have known that that wall was coming up quick and he couldn't be there, right? So these guys are Formula One drivers. They're winners. Nobody wants to come in 18th place. What are we fighting over here? This is 18th, 19th, and 20th place. These guys started from the pit lane, right? So like ultimately, this was no bueno for anybody, right? And I would argue this is probably the best result for all three of them, because then they get to sit back and watch the rest of the Monaco Grand Prix. But moving on, let's get into the other part of the first lap drama. Let's talk about Esteban Ocon taking a dive bomb on Pierre Gasly. Give me your thoughts on that one, Thomas.
So, Mr. Esteban Ocon, he had, from what I gather, from what I've seen, he had a lot of headbutting with his previous teammates and his current teammates. So he's a little bit of a troublemaker. What he did, man, was absolutely stupid. I'm not really sure what was going through his mind, but it sure as hell wasn't racing. It was, I don't know, to cause up drama, to stir up shit, to lose points. You know, that was not racing. That was pure immaturity. His emotions maybe played a role with the drama that him and Gasly had. There was no need for that. It wasn't professional. It was immature. It wasn't team-like. They lost out. Both of them lost out on possibly even more points. And it's a shame that happened. And I know he apologized to his team. Not sure if he apologized to Gasly directly, but he apologized. He admitted his mistake. But man, that's not good enough. When things keep on repeating, there has to be a change. It's immature, and there's no, in my eyes, there's no place for him in that sport the way he drives right now. Ed?
Yeah, no doubt. It's a bad look, man. What do you got on that one, Ed?
I mean, Bruno Faman already said that it is Ocon's fault and he's going to get consequences. And a lot of people are speculating that he might actually be suspended for the Canadian Grand Prix. But yeah, we'll see. Because like exactly what Tomas had said, like in the past, Ocon has always been an absolute pain in the butthole when it comes to his teammates. Like Alonso had the same, instances with Ocon. So did Checo when they were still Racing Point. Like it was just like, what are you going to get out of it? Like what are you going to get in terms of like being aggressive? And of all the corners, Portier, like you could have just done that in the tunnel or at the very least after the Nouvelle Chicane. But why Portier of all the corners? And it's super tight in there. It was a big procession. I mean, like, come on, Ocon, you know better. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm I'm an expert when it comes to like racecraft, but Jesus, come on, dude. Like, you expect better, and he destroyed the car too on top of everything. Like everyone knew that the race was already all said and done. But yeah, just Tomas's point, like they also lost points because of Ocon, and on top of that, they need to repair the car because God knows like what damage she did to the floor, to the chassis, suspension, to the entire car in general. Might be a scrapper, and then it'll be extra money out of their pockets again.
I agree. You know what? Back to your earlier point, though, Ed. Like, I think that Esteban, like, I don't even, was the race not red flagged by this point, or was this kind of crash happening simultaneously?
It was happening simultaneously.
Okay, because I was like, why is he so aggressive during the flags? Like, it just didn't make sense. But back to my earlier point, these guys are race car drivers. They're A-type personalities. They're narcissists. They love to win. It's me, me, me. And we all know that Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly have the biggest frenemy relationship on the grid, hands down. And this is just more point and proof that these guys can't play nice together. And so maybe this is a perfect opportunity for Pierre and Esteban to think about going somewhere else. And I don't know if Pierre leaves, I don't know if Alpine would keep him. And if Esteban leaves, do you think Alpine would keep Pierre Gasly? I think so. I think they probably would.
Well, in terms of contracts, Ocon's contract ends this season. And Pierre has this season and an option for next season. So, and there's been different interviews with Gasly about if he's planning to leave because of like specifically this incident. They had the interview in Monaco too. And he said he's not going anywhere. And the mere fact that Bruno Faman said, this is Ocon's fault, he's going to get consequences because of his actions, it kind of just shows now that if Ocon does anything stupid ever again, like the sights are on him, and everyone is now kind of like moving their allegiances to Gasly. So we'll see. The biggest indicator would definitely be the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal, if Ocon's going to be there or not, or if there would be any type of like press release coming from Alpine.
So what Ocon did was, in a sense, it was a little bit of entertainment value just from his massive mess up. In regards to your point, Ed, from what I read, what I heard, I think they said they're both looking to explore their options. I know Esteban Ocon, like you said, his contract is ending this year, so that's a big question mark what's going to happen with him. But I'm pretty sure Gasly himself wants to be a little bit in a more competitive car. So he's staying this year, he's staying next year. But even then, it's up to him, and he's definitely going to explore his options and see what fits him better.
Yeah. So this is where it comes down to one of those difficult moves that the Alpine team has to make, because like arguably Esteban Ocon's a better driver, right? So like, do you take the bad boy better driver, or do you take the guy who's not a good of a driver but he plays nicey nice, right? Like if you're a racing team, you want to win, you want to get the most points, and like Esteban's the guy who satisfies that portion of it. The other side of it is, who do you want representing your brand? But ultimately, if the brand's not winning, who cares? Right. So I don't know. I think Alpine's in a bit of a tricky spot. I think, with the lackluster performance of their car this year, that they're going to have a tough time recruiting people. I think they'd be blessed to have Esteban and Gasly stay next year, because those drivers are far too good to be on that team, from my opinion, at least. But enough about those guys. Enough about Alpine. Let's get to that new segment we got, the mailbox box. So, because our old friend, Walker, can't be far enough away from us, he misses us immensely. He actually wrote into our mailbox box this week, and he asked us a question. And that question is, do modifications need to be made to the Monaco GP to improve the entertainment value, or should we as fans simply be able to find a different appreciation for this particular event? For example, and Walker quotes, instead of focusing on wheel-to-wheel action, should we be finding appreciation in the mastery these drivers have of these cars, threading through cars through metal barriers 75 times without fault? Or do we need to blow the race up and throw a few bananas on the track every few laps and watch the chaos ensue? Walker, thank you for your question. I'm going to read between the lines there and kind of ask you guys, there's a lot of people who said that the Monaco GP was a little bit broken this year, and broken for a few reasons. One, because for the first time in Formula One history, the top 10 quali finished the exact same places that the top 10 finishers did in the GP. So what we're finding out very quickly, that we mentioned in the previous episode, is that these cars are big, they're heavy, and they're wide. And for those three reasons, Monaco becomes a very difficult track for wheel-to-wheel racing and any sort of passing to happen. So I guess Walker's overarching question, if I can so paraphrase, is do we need to make any changes to Monaco as a Grand Prix in order to keep it on the calendar? Because from my understanding, I think next year is their last year of contract in Monaco. And there's a lot of people saying the FIA that and Liberty Entertainment that they got to dump it. And so, do you want to hold on to the nostalgia and maybe make a few adjustments? I heard Lewis Hamilton suggest maybe make it a 3-stop strategy. Every team has to pit 3 times. Or do we leave it as is and just kind of chalk it up as a whatever and just really focus on the appreciation of the qualities and drivers holding it together during the race? So I'm putting that out to you, Ed. What do you got on that?
I mean, from a point of view of what Lewis Hamilton just said, that's actually very good, because now strategy really comes into play in the race. And if you do it right, there's a possibility that would win, because like the force pit strategy would almost feel like a safety car of some sort when it comes to the actual race. So that could play well into keeping Monaco. But just like Imola, that's the same situation that we had, wherein there was one DRS zone, corners are tight, there are some fast speed corners, but still not enough. Cars are too big. So something's got to give. It's either coming from the FIA's rules and regulations and how they're going to kind of like stretch and make a little bit more, make it a little bit more interesting, or like, as Walker said, throwing in bananas into the race, as opposed to the other side of the engineering side, wherein FIA will say, let's make the cars shorter, let's make the cars a little bit narrower so that there'll be a lot of wheel-to-wheel racing, and that should improve it. But again, it all boils down to who's going to give first and what the reprimand will be coming from the FIA and Liberty Media. But yeah, the race is just, it's getting to that point now I just watched the qualifying, and then after watching qualifying, I watched the last 20 laps of the race, and that was it. Like I did not find any joy in like actually watching the entire race, like all the other races that we've had for this season. Tomas, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so Monaco, being Monaco, as we all know, it's a very iconic track. It might not be the most interesting per se, but it is iconic. Me personally, I would like this track to stay just because for what it is, right? That plays a significant role for me personally as an F1 fan. It's cool that track is on the calendar. But with all these issues, how the cars are, getting so much, they're so powerful, they're wide, they're big, they're long. It's definitely playing a role. Let's say if this incident on the first lap wouldn't have happened, it would have been a pretty dull and boring race. I do have to admit that incident made it a little bit more watchable. But yeah, something definitely has to give. And to Ed's point, as FIA stated and former other drivers and Lewis Hamilton, maybe we start shorting the cars a little bit, maybe making them shorter, narrower, maybe cut down on power even a little bit, as long as they would still be competitive. There's just so many options right now. But same thing as you said, Drew, something has to give. It's not sustainable long term the way this is going, because like I said, without this incident, it would have been a pretty boring race. There wouldn't have been much action at all, and it's just a wasted 2.5 hours essentially. So yeah, they have to come up with something, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to renew it, extend that contract or not.
Yeah, I agree. I think some changes need to be made. My overarching opinion on this kind of just looks like I like Monaco. I appreciate the nostalgia, the fact that, it's always such a big to-do every year. They do it upright. Everyone's super excited about Monaco. There is something, just, we've said it, but like iconic about it. I just think that they just need to do a couple of simple things that will make this race more competitive and more entertaining to watch. And then there's your solution, right? There are so many solutions that they can come up with. maybe they're just going to wait out till the regs. Like I said, next year is the last year, and then they might renew based on the new regs. So who knows? But I don't want to see Monaco come off the Formula One calendar. Maybe it's selfish because I haven't been there for a Formula One race yet, and that's on my bucket list. And if they got rid of it before I got to see it, well, that could be bad. That could be bad and be very upsetting for me. So let's not try to upset Drew, right? Because I'm the only one that matters. All right, guys, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about another team that we don't discuss a whole ton because they're mediocre on the best day. But let's talk about Haas. Like, I know, Thomas, you had mentioned this week that Haas was looking feisty, and they got a little bit of trouble over the weekend. It ended up in the pit lane. But tell me about that, man. What do you got?
So, I kind of had a thought about this even last episode. I kind of wanted to mention it. And basically what I wanted to mention is, man, Haas, the last couple of races, they've been looking pretty fire. Whatever they're doing, it's working for them. It's an actual competitive team, way more competitive than what they have been. So I was definitely impressed. And lo and behold, this weekend came and they're back to their old ways. We're going to start off with qualifying with their wing infringement. It wasn't adjusted properly or wasn't up to spec. They investigated them. They weren't banned. From my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, basically they investigated the team. They said this is an infringement. You're getting penalized, but you're not getting banned from the race. You can continue on. And it's like, great. Let's just still get to see a full grid. Not even half of the lap in, boom, both Haas's are out. Or they take a Red Bull out. It's like, and I was in awe. When I was watching that race, I was in awe. I'm like, seriously, I was just about to say so many good words about you, Haas, that I would never even dreamed of thinking about. And then it didn't take long for you to F it all up in not even half a lap. So, wow, I don't know. I was just shocked. I'm amazed. I'm still kind of shocked about what happened. It was entertainment value. I'm glad no one got hurt in that sense. But that was a rookie move on them, And like I said, it might have been a recent incident or not, but that was rookie moves right there. Back to their old ways. That's all I have to say. I'm pretty hurt about this. I'm not happy.
Yeah, Haas in general for me was, man, I think it's not just the team. Like, honestly, like KMag is now reminding me of the old Pastor Maldonado and Roman Grosjean were in. I'm gonna take out everyone. It's villain season. It's revenge season. It's my last year. I don't even know if I'm gonna have a seat next year. I don't give two F's about everything else. You know what? Forget it. I'm gonna take what's mine. If I can't take it, I'm gonna take someone down with me. So, come on. We're not even like what? Halfway through the season. We're not even in the break yet. He's 2 points away from getting suspended. But I digress. Too much of KMag. Definitely Haas has stepped it up a little bit. I don't know how Komatsu was able to do it. Gene must be over the moon right now to see where they are at this certain point in the year compared to, Alpine, compared to V-Carb, and what budgets they have. So kudos to them with, working with what they have. And Hulk really showing up. KMag also pretty fast to aggressive for everyone else. But still, like, definitely a better look compared to last year.
Yeah, I wonder how Gunther Steiner feels about all this right now. Like, oh, look what we can do once you're gone. Now that we don't have you, look at us go. I wonder if he's just absolutely kicking himself for not being able to extract this kind of success out of the team.
Well, I think they're suing each other right now.
Oh yeah,
Haas is Haas is suing Gunther Steiner. Gunther Steiner is suing Haas. It's like,
yeah, probably no hard feelings there at all. No hard feelings at all.
None.
All right, let's kick it. We got the Canadian Grand Prix coming up. We're home. Our home. This is the race of the year for us, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be attending the race. The only guy who's not here is Walker. He's actually going to be attending the race. So we're very much looking forward to having boots on the ground there this year, which is super exciting. We have a bye week in the middle where we are going to be doing some really cool content for you guys, which I'm really excited about. But before we get there, Thomas, Ed, what do you guys got in the Canadian Grand Prix?
Home race for F1 True North. Very exciting. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to see how Red Bull is going to respond, because this is a track that they're really, really good at. A couple of mistakes in the past few years when it comes to, like, if it rains. But this should be a good test for Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari to see where they really stack up, because there's a really good mix of high-speed sections, low-speed corners, and a very technical track. And you really need to have like a good line to be able to get like good positions in order to do overtakes and whatnot. But my heart is going to go out for Ferrari on this one. Why do I say that? Because their speed has been tremendous for the past few races, even at the start of the season. McLaren is going to be inching towards them. They don't have that much of a pace when it comes to Ferrari, because they are a little bit lacking on the slow corners. And Ferrari's a little bit of a mixed bag, but still very, very good in terms of like a general speed and general pace. And then Red Bull, if they can show that they can bounce back again and show what they were able to show us with the RB19 compared to the RB20, and it should give us a good outlook for the rest of the season. So looking forward to it. If we're going to do any type of predictions, I see Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull as the teams that are going to be really competing. I say Ferrari at the top, McLaren second, and Red Bull third.
It's a bold prediction, buddy. I like it. Tomas, please enlighten us about your opinion on the Canadian Grand Prix.
Okay, so the track is not one of my favorite tracks, but it should be an interesting race in regards to see what the teams actually, how they actually stack up after this race in regards to basically what Ed said with Red Bull, with Ferrari, with McLaren. We're going to see if Ferrari can continue the momentum they had at Monaco. We're going to see if Red Bull can recover from the last couple races they had. So there's going to be a lot of eyes in regards to that. I think there's going to be a variation, and we're going to see like challenges between the teams, different strategies. So I expect it to be interesting in that way, just because, again, Ferrari is so close to Red Bull. I think they're 24 points behind, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a very, very close race right now. Lots of competition between the three. Going to be definitely a fun watch. Secretly kind of hoping, but not really. I know we should talk Aston Martin quite a bit, especially with one of their drivers, our home hero, Mr. Stroll. Part of me secretly wishes that he would perform a little bit better and maybe end up somewhere higher in the podium place. Not podium, but somewhere higher. Podium would be asking too much, but that's probably not going to happen. He's probably going to put it into the wall. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Those are my predictions. As 1, 2, 3, I think. Honestly, I think Red Bull is going to come to the bat and do a home run. I think they're going to be 1. Ferrari, I think, is going to be strong 2, and McLaren 3.
Yeah, you know what? The Canadian Grand Prix obviously is one of my favorites because, well, I'm Canadian, and that's what we do is we cheer for anything Canadian, which we love. Formula One True North, we're a Canadian podcast. Let's go. Ultimately, like, I think this is an opportunity to go back to a quote unquote standard track, right? A purpose-built racetrack that, Ferrari is going to shine at, Red Bull is going to shine at, and I think McLaren, like Ed had mentioned, there's not a lot of medium speed corners here, which McLaren rocks at. I think Red Bull and Ferrari are going to be standing on the top 2 steps. I think Max is probably going to take it on this one. I think Charles, coming off that momentum, I think he's going to have, all the confidence in the world to come on into second place. And I think that, I think Checo's going to be able to kind of pull off that third step, because I think that that he needs to really do something to shock and wow Red Bull at this point, because I know Helmut Marko and Christian Horner are looking at him with a magnifying glass right now, because Ferrari's catching up to them in the Constructors' Championship, and with a car like that shouldn't be the case. And so, I think it's going to be a very interesting Grand Prix. And, obviously we're going to have another episode in between now and then. But, that's it for now, boys. I just wanted to say, like, subscribe, rate for everyone who's listening. We really appreciate your time. Jump on our social medias. We have a Discord channel, all the links in the show notes, whether you're listening on Spotify, YouTube, I don't know, Apple Music, wherever you guys are getting your podcasts these days, these young little whippersnappers downloading their podcasts. We appreciate your support. We want to give a big shout out to the Scuderia Ferrari Club of Toronto. They are the second largest Scuderia Ferrari club outside of Italy. So we just want to give a big shout out to them and thank you for the interest in the podcast and having us go and meet them. So we're going to have some really cool content coming to you guys in the next little bit. And we're going to be partnering up with the Scuderia Ferrari Club of Toronto. So very exciting news, guys. Thanks for listening. Catch you guys next week. This is Formula One True North, the podcast.
It's lights out and away we go.